Hi, I'm Abby, and I am telling my 9/11 story. And today I'm going to tell the story of my husband's, I guess you would call it a memorial service. It wasn't exactly a funeral in the true sense of the word. So I was raised not really going to church. And in fact, churches kind of scared me. My grandmother took me, she always told this story that she took me, when I was like 5 years old, she took me to Notre Dame, a big church in Montreal, which is where my mom's from. And I just clung to her the whole time. And after we got out of the church, I just turned to her and said, I don't think I liked this God stuff very much. Because the church, of course, was very imposing and dark and kind of scary. So that was kind of my experience. My only other experience was about a year later, I was living with my grandmother, and my mother had made me a new dress, but she told me I could only wear it on special occasions. And my grandmother lived in the country, about a quarter of a mile away. There was a church. And she used to go to this church. She wasn't a churchgoer either, but she would go there to, with her friends. She would organize these quilting bees. She was a quilter. Anyhow, I decided I was going to go to church by myself because I just wanted to wear this dress. And so I went, and it was the first time I really had ever been to church. And it's probably pretty much the last time as well. So when Aaron died, a few days after, I was sort of thinking, like, what am I going to do here? Like, am I going to do a funeral? Is he dead? Like, I don't know what to do. But it seemed like going to church was sort of something you did. So I asked my next door neighbor, who I knew went to church, but he was Catholic. I knew we weren't Catholic, so I knew that. I knew we were Anglican, which in the United States is the equivalent of an Episcopalian. So I asked my neighbor, like, what about it? Like, can you help me out here? Like, can you recommend a church? Like, there were no Google reviews for churches. So he, I guess, talked to his minister and got me the name of another minister from an Episcopalian church in town. And so I had all my family staying with me, and we decided that Sunday, so this was the Sunday right after 9/11, that we were going to go to church together. It was like a huge gang. Aaron's friends, my family, there was probably about 10 of us. So I kind of called this minister just to sort of, I felt like I should kind of warn him that, this big gang of like 9/11 people were coming to his church on Sunday. And so I left a message, which kind of felt like I was like leaving a message to God. I don't know. So on the Sunday, we show up at this church, and I don't know what I was expecting. Like, I wasn't exactly expecting, big greeting or something, but I just kind of felt like, because I'd left the message, that somebody would show up and escort us into the church. Again, I'm not really clear on protocols here, but anyway, we all go into the church, and the kids are squirming, and Olivia, who was about the same age as I was when I kind of first went to church, she was clearly uncomfortable, and it's just like, do we have to stay? And I had Aaron's mom, Selena, there, who was grumbling the whole time, and she'd had various bad experiences with churches along the way, so she was not happy to be there. My mother was the kind of churchgoer who always went for the music, so she was kind of happy to be there, looking forward to the music. And all I could think of was, please don't be like the fire and brimstone kind of guy. So the service starts, and the minister walks up, and he begins with like, it is a time of great change, and of course he's like full fire and brimstone. And I don't know what to do, and I've got Selena next to me who's just about to punch somebody. But we kind of last through, this service. And then towards the end of his little sermon, he says, we we've made the decision. We had some baptisms scheduled for today, and we've made the decision to continue with those baptisms. And I'm thinking, what? Like they're gonna baptize babies right now? Like, just the whole thing wasn't computing. Husband dead, major life event, major world event, baptism. Like they just weren't all going together. And all of a sudden, this guy starts walking from the front of the church pulpit, I don't know, to the back of the church where I guess is the fountain where they're going to do the baptisms. And he's joined by this woman who thankfully can sing, because they're singing Take Me to the River, and he's singing it very poorly. Thankfully, she's singing it very well. And so they proceed along. At this point, Selena is out the door. She's like gone. And he proceeds back, and I'm just in utter amazement that this is happening. And sure enough, back there is like mothers all lovingly with their babies, and their fathers are right next to them, and it's just like my head is gonna explode. And so the kids are like, can we go with grandma? I'm like, yep, we can. And so out we go. And so we're outside the church now, just feeling like kind of ejected and dejected, just unbelievable. You know, Selena is spitting nails at this point. And we're standing out there, just don't know what to do. And all of a sudden, this huge door, and these huge doors of this church, this one door creaks open, and this little hand pokes out, and it's got a teddy bear in it, one for each of the children. And so the kids grab these teddy bears that like appear from God out of the church, and it's just, it's insane. So we decide that we're probably not going to have the service in a church. That is the long and the short of that. So the next plan is to do it outside, and I decided to do it outside at this place called the Eagle Rock Reservation, which was a park that we kind of went to. It had this beautiful view of New York City from New Jersey. And honestly, you could still, this is, you know, still pretty soon after, but you know, the the plumes are still rising. Even we had the service October 14th, so the plumes are still rising at that time from the site. So luckily, my brother-in-law had an aunt who was a Franciscan nun that lived in Philadelphia, and she was incredible. So she came and organized this whole thing. So it had a little touch of the religion. Obviously, she was a nun, so it had the music that my mother was going to be happy about, but that it was also going to have some, you know, it was going to be outside, there was going to be a tent, it was, you know, kind of a little more like us, and then a view of, you know, the building, which was both good and bad, I guess. It made it real, for sure. So we show up on the day of the memorial service, and there's nuns there, as you might expect, because she brought some of the nuns, and they are standing there with guitars. And I turned to Selena, I go, oh look, they're singing nuns. And then we both start to laugh, and I think, oh no, oh no. So the whole service, all I can think about is the singing nuns and Sally Field, and it's all I can do to not be giggling like a hysterical person through the whole service. And like, I'm using Carter, my son, who's like a 2-year-old, he's sitting on my lap, and I'm laughing into his, like I'm giggling because Selena's next to me giggling as well into his hair, and he's getting very annoyed with me. And I'm hoping that to everybody else, it just looks like I'm sobbing into his hair, but no. So it was a bit of a trip. So that's my religion story. So I hope I don't offend anybody by my lack of religious knowledge. But that was just how I was raised. So it was I was very well cared for through all of it, and I will always think of, Aunt Nora, the Franciscan nun, who was just so kind to me in those days, and, just took all of my fears and calmed me down in a way that I will just always value and cherish.